And we should be live. Now we're a couple minutes early, so I'm sure people will be rolling in. And let me get set up while that's happening. And as you're joining, say hello in the chat. And while people are coming in, let me share the link in the meetups real quick, just for people to get the direct live link. And again, as you're joining in, say hello in the chat, and I'll go over what this meetup is if you haven't been here before. Also, I'll show you how to join. You can actually join the stream here with me if you want. And a lot of people also just talk in the chat. So it's up to you how you want to participate today. And I'll cover that here in a minute. Let me just send out final link to the meetups in case people did not get the direct link. And how's everyone doing? Let me also make sure that we are live correctly. And if it lags or anything, let me know. I think my Wi-Fi should be good. There is construction outside, and someone cut my Wi-Fi or had it turn off earlier today. I think it might have been them. So let me know if something weird happens. Hopefully it doesn't. And I'm just checking, make sure we're live. Again, we're a little early too, so I know people are rolling in as you're coming in. Say hello in the chat. And I'm gonna wait. Again, I guess we're a minute early still, so I'm gonna wait a few minutes before I share out the links here as well. I guess I can reshare them, but we are reading this book, or hopefully some of you have read this book or part of this book. Welcome, Cody. How's it going? And also, this is new, is that O'Reilly has actually, or sorry, not O'Reilly, Manning. This is a Manning book. If you buy a Manning book for book club, or I think probably just any of them, and if you use this code AI Book Club, you should get 45% off, is what they told me, which is awesome. And we've read quite a few Manning books this year, so they offered that as a discount for us, which is kind of cool. They also have a lot of like video formats and stuff on their site as well. Cool. Seeing more people say hello. How's it going? Again, as you're rolling in, say hello in the chat. And we'll get started here in a few minutes. Probably less than a few minutes, 2 minutes, something like that, as people are rolling in. We have some kind of intro slides too I have as a buffer for people to roll in as well. So welcome, Samantha. Welcome, Cody. Also, the link to the GitHub. Why can't I copy this? So if you do want to just check out the code, if I could copy this link. Oh, it's in a different text thing, I guess. If you want to check out just the code, you can always do that as well with most books. Hey, Ivan, how's it going? Welcome, welcome. All right, so I'm going to go through the slides. Again, I'll also share a link if you want to join the stream and say hello in audio or video. You don't have to turn your video on. So if you just want to keep audio, you can. And then also, you can also keep the conversation in the chat. A lot of people end up talking in the chat, probably more than here, but hopefully someone will want to come up and join the conversation. Usually at least one other person does. If not, it could be a shorter meetup as well, which is totally fine. All right, so we're reading, or hopefully some of you have read part of this book this month. This is Effective Conversational AI. We'll dive more into this shortly. I shared the link in the LinkedIn chat. I guess I'll put it in the YouTube chat as well, because I actually see some people joining over there today. You can find this book on O'Reilly or Manning. I know some people here, including myself, I often read a lot of the books on the O'Reilly online platform, which you can also get usually through your library or through a lot of libraries and universities. I don't know if they have all the Manning stuff in there, but they have most of the O'Reilly books and a lot of other books in there. So it's a good way to check out reading these books without having to spend money on them if you don't want to. And they probably still get some kickback from the library or something like that as well. You can also buy it directly from Manning. If you weren't here at the beginning, I just said they gave us the coupon code here, AI Book Club, which will give you 45% off. I think any book. I'm not sure if that also works for like the video and stuff. It might, but we've read quite a few of the Manning books this year. They're usually really, really good. And then here is the GitHub for this book if you want to check out the code as well, which most books have like a GitHub that you can usually find. I always recommend obviously buying the book and supporting the authors, but you can usually often find code and stuff like that online for free as well from them. And this is the AI Book Club. In short, we've been reading a new book every month, and then we discuss it online. The Slack for the AI Reading Club part has been a little quiet lately, but I'll share the link if you want to join the Slack channel. Hopefully we'll get this kind of kickstarted more conversations in there about like what the book we're reading. I think it's just been a little quieter over the summer. Not as many people have been online like in the evening, including myself. And then if you want to join the audio or video here, let me actually go ahead and get that invite link. And I'll probably share this a couple times throughout the event today. I'm going to share this in the LinkedIn chat. So if you want to, you can go to that link and then you can join in the actual conversation here today. We've also been keeping kind of a list here of all the books that we've been reading in this GitHub repo. And then also the best way to stay up to date if you like these type of events or want to get the recording or just see the other ones coming up is just join the Luma calendar. Everything gets posted there. And that's going to be the best way for you to kind of stay updated with all the other books we're reading besides being in the Slack channel and actually coming to the events. The books we've read so far for 2025 is all of these. Someone asked, is it recorded? It is. It's actually wherever you're watching from right now, it'll exist there as well. But they go on LinkedIn and YouTube. They're streaming to 2 places, so they're going to stay there. The books we've read so far, again, we've read one every single month, and we did this in 2024 as well. We'll see if we'll do it in 2026. If any of you have book recommendations, let me know. It has been really fun. It's obviously a lot to try to read a whole book every single month, but it has been really fun. And so I think I'm going to keep it up in 2026, but let me know if you want that to keep going. I don't know. It's fun to hear feedback of if people want like more books in 2026 and what books they have in mind. There's a whole bunch coming out. Like if you look at the pre-release in like the O'Reilly section, there's so much coming out in 2026 for, AI agents and a lot of the more cutting edge stuff that people have been talking about the last year, but they haven't been books on. There's going to be a lot of that coming out, I think, early 2026. So I'm hoping to read some of those. The book we are reading this month is Effective Conversational AI. And then October, we're going to read LLM Ops. This is a new publication. I think it came out last month or this month. And then in November, we're going to read Deep Learning for Biology, which is a little industry specific. I'm kind of excited. Like I liked this reinforcement learning for finance. It's a different industry that I don't always work in, but I do help build tools for those different for different industries. They're used in different industries. So it's really fun to get like deeper insights. And in fact, we have like quite a few biotech like customers and people using our open source. So it'd be fun. Like I'm excited to dive into that field a little bit more. And then December will be the final book for 2025, which is going to be Building Applications with AI Agents. This is the newest AI agent book, and I haven't looked at the contents yet, but I'm hoping it's going to be really good. A lot of the O'Reilly stuff is, and it's a new one with kind of AI agents. We've read a couple in this past year. This one was good, but a little outdated just because the industry moves so fast. And I'm excited to see what this one talks about. All right. And then what should we read next? I already told you. If you have recommendations, let me know in the chat or in the Slack channel that I shared or on Luma, like message me somewhere. If you see a book, like I said, there's a whole bunch coming out. This is barely the start of the list or like a little bit of the list here. Let me know because we have to organize them too. And I usually ask people what they want to read next. And that's kind of how they get chosen. So I will probably come up with a list of books for 2026 and post them in the Slack channel if you kind of want to vote on which ones to read next. The format, again, just say hello and talk in the live chat. You can message me on LinkedIn. My name is Sage Elliott, and I will also share the link again if you actually want to join this. I'll share it one more time for now in the LinkedIn chat. So if you want to come on with your audio or video, you're more than welcome to. Oh, one thing I forgot to do is actually show the chat in the stream. I think this makes it a little bit more exciting for people to see the conversation across the channels. I forgot to turn that on. I think if people start talking in there now, it should probably show up. I guess it doesn't show the previous messages. With that, Oh, also, before we go into the whole contents of the book, shout outs. So before we dive into the book, feel free to share this later too, and just shout these out in the chat, or if you come join the audio discussion up here. I always like to ask, like, is anyone hiring? Is anyone looking for a job? Are there any awesome projects or upcoming things that you're doing that you want to share out with the community? So we've actually had quite a few like reoccurring people, and it feels like it's become a little bit more of a community here. It's always really fun to ask those things and help people get hired, help people recruit and hire people. And if you have any projects you want to highlight or anything else, share that in the chat as well. Well, people are thinking about those, so I definitely encourage you to share this. I have a couple things I'm going to share. If you're in the San Francisco area, I'm actually hosting an event next Tuesday, so literally a week from now, in the evening in San Francisco. It's an in-person event. It's part of SF Tech Week. There's a handful of spots left. Be cool to see some people in person. And it's going to be a panel discussion with, oops, is that showing up on stream? Yeah, it's going to be a panel discussion with some really cool people. Kathan, who's the founder of Union AI and the creator of Flight, which is our popular open source orchestration framework. Amanish, who's a senior director of the AI platform and infrastructure team at LinkedIn and formerly at IBM Watson, which actually the authors of today's book, I think, work at IBM currently. And then Ramesh, who's a lead ML engineer and motion planning at Aurora, their self-driving truck company. And then the VP engineering of hydraulics, which they do like data logging at scale. So there's going to be some really cool people there, and it's going to be a happy hour as well. So hopefully I'll see some of you there. And then also I'll shout out that we are hiring. So if you are looking for a job, you can check out the listings on Union AI. We build infrastructure around building AI workflows at scale, and also now like agentic workflows. So we're an AI workflow and inference platform. You can check out our new SDK, Flight 2, that we just launched. I'm really excited. It's going to be a really cool kind of runtime for conversational AI. And in fact, I'm actually working on some conversational AI projects right now using like Flight 2. And this book was really, really helpful for me. There's a lot of stuff that I've already run into in here, and then just some things that were really good for me to think about. I'm gonna catch up on chat here real quick, and then we'll dive in. And again, if anyone wants to come up and join the audio and video, I shared the link previously, but you can also message me, and I'm sure I'll share it again. Cody said they're in San Francisco. Awesome. We'll aim to be there. Yeah, it's October 7th at 5:30 p.m. and it's in like Financial District. So you should RSVP in there, and I'll keep an eye out for you to get you approved, hopefully. Any other shout outs or questions from the community? I know also sometimes my streaming, there's a little bit of a lag before it gets to people. So I just want to make sure that there's any other shout outs that you want. We have John joining the stream. Also, Cody said they're on the prowl for a support engineer role. So if anyone knows anyone hiring, or you have a role open, you can reach out to Cody. Check that out on the LinkedIn chat. And welcome up, John. And if you don't have anything to say yet, I'll quickly go through kind of the all the parts of the books, are all the chapters of the book. So the book is kind of broken it up into 4 parts, and there's chapters in each of those parts. So part 1 is a framework for improving conversational AI, and these are the chapters: what makes conversational AI work. And then 2 is building a conversational AI. 3 is planning for improvement. And then there's part 2, pattern AI doesn't understand. Understanding what your users really want, improving weak understanding for traditional AI, enhancing responses with retrieval-augmented generation, and then augmenting intent data with generative AI. And then part 3, the AI is too complex. So streamlining complex workflows, harnessing context for adaptive virtual assistant experience, and then reducing complexity with generative AI. And then we have the final part, which is reduce friction, and it talks a lot about like reducing opt-outs. So it's pretty common when someone's encountered with like a chatbot or something like that, that either they say hello once, or they realize it's a chatbot and they might get out of the conversation, or they just have a poor time. And then the final chapter is conversational summarization for a smooth handoff. And if anyone has any comments so far, let me know. And John, you joined the live stream here. I thought I'll kind of recap these. So then I also have these broken out with their subsections. But I always like to open this up real quick for any like comments or anything that people had already on kind of these chapters or ones that stood out to them most. I thought this book was really, really good, actually. If you are building a conversational AI for the first time, or you've already dabbled in it a little bit, this book actually almost seemed like out of all the books we've read so far, the most complete end to end for this like specific problem and how to think about it in terms of teams and structuring feedback and measuring. I thought it was really good, and maybe not as much like there is code examples, and I didn't go look at the GitHub too deeply or run all the code, so I can't judge it too harshly. But inside the book, there's not as much like hands-on code as some of the other books. But I thought this gave you a really, really good just framework for all these different pieces. And like they mentioned, you can use different libraries and frameworks because they also use, I think, the IBM Watson. I forget what it's called, but it's kind of like their AI studio type of thing. And then they touch on it lightly. They don't use it over like an insane amount in the book, but they point to it several times. Like I said, I think they work at IBM Watson, so they kind of talk about it from that perspective of building conversational AI, but then using that tool as a backend. But you could take all the things they talk about and apply it to whatever libraries and frameworks that you want. And I thought it was really, really good end to end picture of all the different things. And like I was saying, a lot of stuff I've encountered before, or just really good things for me to think about as I move forward with what I'm building right now. I thought it was a really good book, and I'm curious if anyone else actually read it at all, or skimmed it, if they had thoughts. I know a lot of people joining don't always read the books fully or ever. Let me see. And Avi joined. Welcome, Avi.
Hello. Can you hear me?
How's it going? I can hear you.
Good.
Yeah.
Very good. Like, yeah, there is a little bit of a lag. I opened this and so I can hear that on the streaming also. I had it open before. So
Yeah,
I got a little disoriented first.
I think there's often like I don't know if it's quite 30 seconds, but it's pretty common when you're streaming. There's like a buffering part, whether it's on LinkedIn or YouTube.
Yep.
So I always like have to wait a little bit longer to see answers too when I ask questions.
Got it.
But welcome up. Did you read the book? Do you have any thoughts on anything so far?
Actually, unfortunately, I haven't read the book. I just heard about your thing from Abby's comment on LinkedIn. I've been following her, so that's how I got. I'm super excited about the book as well as this one. But I wanted to bring a certain struggle that I'm having with conversational AI systems, and maybe you can comment based on what you have read, and maybe the group can provide some context there. So one of the big problems that we have is we're building a conversational AI platform, and the use case is about coaching agent. It's more like it's a life coach kind of platform. And unlike customer service agents, where the user comes, they know exactly what the problem is, they specify, and it is more like an answering engine. You go find from your FAQ or something like that from a RAG system, you get the answer, give the answer, or point them to the FAQ article, and they are gone. So it's very short. But a coach, like let's assume I'm having some problem with my manager or something like that, and this is a long-standing thing that goes from quarterly or like I have a mid-year review. It went bad last time, and again I'm having a mid-year review now, and these are long-term, like long-term memory is an extremely important thing. Does the book go into how to deal with long-term memory and not just look for personalization? I looked at mem0, Google Memory Bank, like Letta, Colette, and a couple of others, this one, but all of them are looking at uh, memory from the perspective of identifying preferences of the user so that it can be remembered and personalized for next engagement. But if you're looking at a coaching kind of conversation or companion AIs, it's not about preferences. It's about context that they have provided so that they can come back to it, and uh, the new conversation should be meaningful.
Yeah,
How does it deal? Like what does the author suggest or deal with that kind of situations?
They had, what was the chapter? There's a chapter on this. Hang on, which one was it? Was it 5 or 6? I might bring up the book on my other tab real quick. There's one basically just like you're talking about that's handling this one, I think, chapter 9, harnessing context for an adaptive virtual assistant experience. So they talk about kind of what you're talking about in different, maybe different use cases. But obviously the importance of context, just like you're saying, like understanding what they've already gone through. Understand the modality. This is kind of like I think they are specifically talking here, I guess, about kind of like use case, but also how you interact with it. Like, is it a text based? Is it a audio based type thing? Do you have other data from previous interactions? So like if you have, might not be your coach one, but they talk a lot about like if you're an assistant on some shopping site or something like that, and you actually have a lot of data on the user from years past or something like that, you can see like the things they've liked, the interactions, which is kind of the customization piece you're talking about. But they do talk about like you have things stored from a long time ago that you can pull up, and there's different ways to do that. And like one way is they call it RAG in here. I think they even mentioned it's like maybe it's just, I mean, it's just like searching, like storing their history. So if you had a conversation with your manager a year ago, you could have that stored and it could reference back to it. Is that kind of like what you're talking about?
Yeah. So how to like effectively do it? Like it can't be like, the whole conversation kept in there. And if you just do a vector search, again, like only some chunks will come out. It is not. So it is a mix of summarization as well as bunch of these things there. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think just what you're saying, like a great piece would be like summarizing that whole
exactly
experience and having that stored. And then you can, depending on how you architect it, but like there's like the tree rag, which if this is going to be an ongoing thing, you're going to have multiple conversations. It could be useful where things called tree rag, where it's like you kind of have these nodes of summarization and then it references like full documents or conversations from there that it can maybe pull from. That might be interesting for something like this. And there's also like they talk a lot about in the book of like if the user, like if they know this is a coach and they know that this is going to happen every year, like there could be interesting things you do with like check-in points or something like that throughout the year. Or saying, hey, this is coming up again. Was there anything like that you remember from last year being the most important, or like do you feel like you improved in certain areas? They talk a lot about bringing that type of stuff up, which is I think really cool and would make the experience like more powerful if you know it's going to happen and you can ask those types of questions.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And welcome up, John. Not sure if you had any things you wanted to say or mention. Otherwise, Avi, I'd also love to hear more about like what you've encountered so far building conversational AI, and is there any big pieces like you've learned that you think would be good to shout out for other people?
I think like context engineering was something that we were like dealing with before the word term got coined by Karpathy, but like almost like 6 months before, like we were dealing with, because unlike others, our context like keeps increasing, like conversation length keeps increasing, and unless you manage it, you start keep dealing with failures and other things there. So being able to basically like what, I don't know. Maybe the best thing to say is like, given a lot of the learnings that I have is very specific to my use case. So you need to really understand what is important for your context and figure out where to store it and how to store it and get it as soon as possible. Because one of the problems that we are still dealing with is we're using reasoning models, and it takes like 13 seconds or so, kind of, sometimes depending on the hosters there. And one of the weird problems that also we saw is that DeepSeek R1 hosted on Together.ai is very different from DeepSeek R1 hosted on Fireworks.ai versus another one. And the hoster, the way they have configured it, makes a whole lot of difference, and the responses, its style, etc., is different as well.
Do you think that, because I've experimented a little bit with that myself from some inference endpoints, do you think that must be just like a system prompt that they set up, right?
Yeah, like there is a system prompt, and also I wonder like if there is a configuration aspect as well, because like how much resources are they providing?
Right.
Because and that can change the quality of the answer that you get as well. So because if you look at together.ai, there are two versions of it. One is called a throughput version, and one is a fast version, and the pricing is almost like 3 to 4 times different. And the quality is not just the speed, but even the quality of the answers are different between the two.
Like the throughput one might, I don't know, I'm making this up, so I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, but the throughput one might be like a quantized version or something like that.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
compressed one and it runs faster, but
And
you're gonna
also
get,
like depends on how much of GPU resources, etc., they're giving that. So it might be taking longer otherwise also. So there are, I think there are many knobs that the hoster is making a decision on that is invisible to us,
yeah,
that we have to be careful about.
yeah. It totally makes sense. That's why I like definitely testing like
Yeah.
well switch when you're switching providers, but even with the same one once in a while, right? Like even
Yes, yes. Oh yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
if you remember it, well, it feels less so on the major models maybe now to me, but with just OpenAI, one day it would just perform awful and sometimes it would perform great, and there's a lot of theories of what's going on there. Like, are they during high traffic times using quantized versions of the model sometimes? um
Yeah.
yeah, so just always having tests and verifying it is pretty interesting. And then also you can like host, I mean, if you're gonna try to get around it, you can host your own models in various ways,
Have
which
you guys like, I've not, like, I don't have the skill. I don't know. It feels like it's a big deal for me, but maybe I'm over anxious about that. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. I need to do something if I have to
yeah,
do it.
it depends on your background, but I mean, it sounds like you've been running that type of stuff, and there's definitely services that make it not that big of a deal.
Exactly.
And even like the company I work for, like we basically make it really easy through Python SDK to
I see.
manage like Kubernetes. So you can like download an artifact, a model, and then serve it there, which then you can add in just in your Python
Interesting.
SDK, like time to life and stuff like that. So you can have
Okay.
it spin up,
Okay.
but then spin down and use zero resources after 5 minutes or whatever. What do you define that? But again, it's in
Got
like
it.
an SDK, so it feels pretty simple. And there's other services too. So actually, probably a lot of the newer clouds have some stuff too. There is let me pull up a company real quick. I always love talking about tools in here in the book club. So if anyone else listening to this has comments for tools like this as well, share them. Let me share a couple in the chat. And then also, I like to add these into the notes. So I'll share the slides later. If I have time, I can format these notes better. So again, company I work for, but also there's other services. There's this one called Paracel that I was messing around with the other day. They actually have some serverless models as well, so like together AI type of thing.
Yeah.
But then they also, I think, make it easy for you to upload your own Hugging Face model or almost any library that's on Hugging Face,
I
and
see.
then have it served. So in
Oh,
like
okay, perfect.
that you can do either really easily through Python SDK. In some cases, like I think on a dedicated node, you might even be able to do it completely through a UI.
Okay.
And on
The
Union, that's all through like a Python SDK as well.
the worry that I have is like if something is deteriorating or something is not working well, how do I debug? Like, because
Yeah,
I don't have the like context about what is going wrong and how to debug it and stuff like that.
yeah, that's true. And you're gonna, yeah, like,
And even if it's not going wrong, like once I install, like get it hooked up and get it running, how do I know that it's actually running as it is supposed to be running?
yeah, that's when you build in the tests, which the book talks about as well. Like evaluating and with stuff, and evaluating and monitoring are things that you probably want for any machine learning model. It just,
That's right.
with when you're not doing LLMs, it's a little bit easier in some ways, I feel like. But you should always be looking at, and this is true for any machine learning model. Anytime I put something in production, at a bare minimum, Cody's coming up. At a bare minimum, I want to look at inputs and outputs in some way for my
Mhm.
model. So like if that's a classification model, it's a little bit easier. You can just get predictions back. For LMs, I'd want to look at inputs and outputs and then extract some metrics from that.
Okay.
So the book also talks about tools that we've talked about before. in Book Club, like Arise. There's Weave by Weights and Biases. You can build your own dashboard. Basically, if you're storing inputs and outputs, you can extract some metrics from those. And those could be like, actually, this book has a really good point, is they start with like a routing type agent. And this can actually start off as just a classifier, which is a probably really good lightweight to do this, where someone asks a question and then you have these predefined like intents that you know people should be asking your chatbot about. So like if you're a healthcare assistant or whatever, like you'll have like, 50 different things they could ask about. And then it says, oh, they're asking about like their appointment or something like that. Or they're asking about rescheduling. And you can have all these different things. And then this little lightweight classifier determines the intent and then routes to the right chatbot, which we've talked a lot. Other books have talked about routers, like agent routers, like, oh, this agent would be good at that. This would be good at that. And this one does it in a way where, because they come from building conversational AI, I think before like the LM boom as well. Like he had a former book, I think just called Conversational AI or something like that.
I see.
And it's actually a really good, slightly more deterministic way for some things too. Like at the start of the book, they talk about building like you build a chatbot assistant for like a cake shop. And at first you just want to answer like when people ask store hours and stuff. And so you can have like a really lightweight classifier that can say, they're asking about this, answer this question. It's always going to answer that question right. And it doesn't need to go to an LM, which is pretty convenient. Like if people are asking like, are you hiring? You don't need an LM to point them to like the careers page or something, right? Like you can just understand that. And so even just logging the intent patterns can be a really interesting signal if you have it set up that way. So like over time, you could see like people keep asking about this thing and then they keep, oh, it's interesting. Like maybe times have changed or something happened in the world and now they're asking about this thing way more. And then now, because that's the most popular intent, I should go like dig deeper and make sure we're like robust enough to handle answering those questions. Or you might see like, now like an unidentified intent is the most popular thing. And then go try to identify like, is your classifier not handling that well? Or is it some new thing that you think it should be handling? So I think, and then you can pull out other metrics like, they talk about this a little bit later too, like your, chatbot shouldn't be rude. So you can have like a lightweight model that does like sentiment and stuff like that.
Got it. Okay,
well,
perfect.
Welcome up, Cody.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, hopefully it's not too noisy. I'm walking around San Francisco. But yeah, I thought it was a really interesting question that was asked earlier about, that memory, because I know a few months ago, the koala paper came up and we talked about how they kind of broke down different types of memory. And it seemed like in that last question, he was talking about like episodic memory, where, if you have like a friend, it's like, yeah, that's part of what a friendship means, is like they have the context of all of these previous exchanges and they can like draw on that. And then, yeah, it just seems very non-obvious how to like actually introduce that into an agentic conversational app. So I'm personally really interested in hearing exactly how people do that.
Yeah, and if anyone has more experience, you should come up here, and I'll share the link again too, in the chat. But yeah, someone asked a question. I think this might be what you're referring to in the chat as well, where they mentioned they believe some of the chatbots are now incorporating memory into their features so that it can be referred to post history, from what I understand. So perhaps depends on the underlying model you're using. Yeah, I think that, so the chat systems can, like if you use ChatGPT, it definitely does, and Claude, those all become like personalized to you. I think if you're using an API, I don't think it does it automatically. And most of the ones that I know of, there probably are ones that do. Or have an option for it or something like that. But I think a lot of times it's something you have to implement in, which is just like Cody was saying, how do you do that? And from, I think the naive, like kind of quick way is building a RAG system that it can pull from and look at like what you've been talking about. So I know like when ChatGPT, I ask it about MLOps stuff or whatever, and it always replies like, here's how you would do it with flight or something like that. Even if I didn't ask it or I am not even trying to do it, but because I've asked it so many times, I think it knows. Like, I think actually it used to be this way too, where you could go into ChatGPT and they had a section, I'm not sure if it's still there, and actually had like a list of topics that it like keeps track of that it knows you want to talk about most of the time. And you could like go delete them or update them. So like it probably knows like anytime I talk about MLOps or AI infrastructure, it's thinking, it links it to like the open source flight or Union AI. And I think you can go in and like edit them, which is interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I was meeting with the founder last week who the kind of agentic application he's building is in the like a consumer therapy app. And originally he was thinking he would use RAG and he ended up deciding that he didn't need to, just because like these frontier models have been trained on such an incredibly impressive corpus of information that he found that if he wanted to anchor the responses in some particular modality, like in his case, it was like motivational interviewing, which he got really excited about. He can do that just by like wrapping it in the right instructions. He doesn't even need RAG, but maybe RAG would be the perfect solution to like embed the episodic memory so you could refer to it later, I guess.
Yeah, there's different ways of searching too, I guess. It seems like, I mean, which is RAG. You don't always have to use a vector database. That's just like the common one, I guess. RAG is really just retrieving information from somewhere. Someone mentioned, what was the paper? Do you remember? Is it
the koala paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like cognitive architectures for language models or something like that.
Let me see if I can find it.
It was good. Yeah. I mean, they didn't give any trade secrets away, but I thought it was a really helpful like taxonomy for how to even think about memory.
Let's see. Oh, cognitive architectures for language agents, maybe?
That's it. Yeah.
I'll share this in the LinkedIn chat and I'll put it in the notes as well. Let's see. I always like to keep track of what we talked about. And also, I'll share this out, or hang on one second. Let me make this shareable. If anyone wants to view it.
Yeah, that paper seems to be from 2023. There is a more recent, very interesting paper that Google wrote called In Prospect and Retrospect, like a few months back. It's a phenomenal paper. And their paper basically was around that is the basis on which Google just released a private or a preview based product called as Google Memory Bank, and that paper was the underpinning of that paper. So again, if you guys are interested, take a look at that. Only thing is Google's product offering is very early version of it, not as exciting as the full paper that they have written.
Yeah, I'd be super interested in that. See, I'm trying to squint at my phone and see what your name is, but it's all so small. But yeah,
Avi. It's Avi Batula.
Avi, okay, cool. I'll try to find you on LinkedIn, and maybe I can get that link from you.
Yeah, I just pasted on the chat. Like, if you want to see, you can see, kind of thing. Yeah,
definitely
feel free to reach out to me. Yeah,
I added to the slides as well here.
Perfect.
And I always say I'm going to try to put these notes in the Slack. I at least will paste the slides into the Slack channel if anyone's in there to find them later. I also liked what Charles said. Not RAG, now it's just context engineering. Which I think, Avi, like you were saying, you were doing context engineering before it was context engineering.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I spend most of my time on.
And there's a book we read last year that was I think it's just called Prompt Engineering for LMs or large language models.
Yeah.
And I saw a joke because the authors of that book posted the book, but with like a piece of tape on it saying like context engineering because the terms have just changed now. Let's see. Any other questions in chat? I think I might have missed something. Someone said, what is the physical constraints on the memory that these GPTs can have? I mean, I think it's just like compute amount that you want to spend, and then whatever context windows are, and also context, like pasting 1 million tokens doesn't always give you the right answer anyway into there. So I don't know if, like, what the physical constraint is. I think that's just compute, which is pretty high. I think it's more of a how good does your LM act with that amount of memory?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
do you want to pay that amount?
And even when you pay that amount, one of the biggest problems that we ran into was the U-shaped attention. The LLM has high attention at the start and the end.
Yep.
So even if you put a lot, everything, cram it in, actually the things in the middle didn't make much impact at all.
Yep. That's what I found too. It's like it's still better to have a precise context passed in versus like everything. Like, and people have probably noticed this, like when you paste a really long thing into ChatGPT or something, it gets worse at answering it. What else in the book was pretty interesting? This is a good thing. Just this comes up other times in book clubs when people ask, like, what are things to think about when building it? And they do talk a lot about of like having a team and like stakeholders in that communication process, which is great. And something I've run into all the time working at other companies or doing consulting. But also just like even a recent conversational chatbot project I've had where someone told me like, oh, this is kind of be the scope. But then when you pass it around to more people in the company and then other people are expecting a different scope, it's like having like a good understanding of what you need or what other people are expecting is obviously super important when you're building your conversational AI, and then keeping that like loop going. I liked the intent part too, like I'd mentioned, was interesting. Like I've had like LMs as routers and stuff inside of like agents I've built. One thing I want to experiment now with, looks like everyone left. If anyone wants to come back up, you're welcome to. If not, thank you so much for coming up. That was really great to have other people up here. And Avi had really good insights from building his project. One thing I was going to say for the intent router, I'm curious if other people have used any specific models for it. I've used like lightweight large language models, but I actually or larger large language models, but I actually want to try using like a BERT model and fine tuning it, because BERT models do really good job for unstructured or classification on unstructured data. And I think it'd be really easy to build like a small or fine tune a small BERT model for your intent. And there's probably already existing ones on Hugging Face you can pull to do this, but I'm not sure if anyone's used any other really lightweight classification models to do the initial router piece versus like another large language model, which is mostly what I've done so far, which can work, but there's probably more optimized ways. Like if you're doing this at scale, like I was saying, you don't have to pay, tokens or spin up time for a large language model. You can use a lightweight one and then pass to the correct intent, which is something I think I'm going to try with one of my current projects. How is San Francisco, Cody? I'm excited to hopefully meet you in person next week.
Yeah, man, it's been fun. This has been my first year here, and yeah, it took a while for me to feel like I was starting to meet people. But yeah, I can honestly say I love this city, and there's definitely a lot of energy here, a lot of creative energy, and a lot of technology builders as well who are excited about maybe like what's possible now that wasn't even possible just a year or two ago.
Yep. Yeah, every time I go down there, it's wild because I don't know if other people are from San Francisco here, but your energy down there for building stuff is awesome. And everyone knows like so much current stuff going on, and I always feel like I get smarter just talking to random people down there. It's really fun. Like going to meetups or talking at meetups down there is great.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments people have on, again, it doesn't have to be exactly the book, but the general topics that we've discussed so far or that's covered in the book? They also had this chapter, which was cool. I've done a little bit in the past at a different job, and I am thinking about trying to do this. Actually, I already was thinking about doing this on one of my current projects, and this outlines some kind of cool ways of augmenting your data with Gen AI. Makes sense. I mean, if you already have like maybe a small production data set, and then you want to test your model more or kind of fine tune it potentially. For me, it would be more about evaluation and then me doing prompt fine tuning or adding more to context or adjusting chunking and RAG, is augmenting, just creating a larger test data set with Gen AI. Sounds obvious. They just had some good methods to do it, and like how to do that, especially if we're testing like your intent router, like we were talking about. I'm kind of excited to go try to implement that. So they had a cool way of just generating more data for testing.
Yeah, maybe Sage, one question I could ask is about chunking. Like I was just on Hugging Face looking at some of the embedding models, and I think my group and I are going to try to do it for the first time, but I wasn't really sure how to think about chunking. Like I read somewhere that you can just kind of like think about what is their token limit and more or less just make the chunking decisions in this like random ad hoc way, but have them overlap. Or I didn't know if like that's the right way to think about it, or if you're supposed to be more thoughtful and really like segment the chunks so they're like independent ideas or something.
That's the what you said is like the first kind of like quick get started way, which is good to start with. But then you might need to adjust your chunking later, which is totally fine. Like I just kind of expect that now as part of like kind of my tweaking, like fine tuning process. For example, one of the projects I'm working on, if you just chunk, like for me, I was scraping web pages and then doing like converting that to either like getting the content out in HTML or putting it to Markdown. There's different ways you can do it. And then if you just load that into your LM for whatever the chunking window is, you can lose a lot of context sometimes. So if you're asking something about docs that are like, if you're using a tool, like let's say Flight, and you're saying you're asking like a chat bot about it. And then if you're using RAG, it might go pull like the headline and some text or something from that document, but it won't pull the code. Or if you don't properly chunk full ideas, I think like you were saying, like you can have headings and then like whole paragraphs and then just stop at the paragraph versus like interrupting that paragraph in bad parts where then it loses like the meaning of it or the context of it. And this happens a lot with code. So like if you're chunking code, you probably always want to make sure that if it's a function, you're not just going to cut off the function in the middle, because otherwise you lose like a big part of that chunk that would probably be useful to it. So it's like, just think about if you're it depends on the type of data that you have. And then if you were to just cut that up into random pieces, is it still useful? Yes or no? And then how would you make those pieces more useful? And there's like some built-in stuff, like if you're using LangChain, you can also just build in some stuff that's not too complex. So like, if it's a code snippet, always include that whole code snippet. Or if it's HTML, like include the whole paragraph tag or header tag or something like that, and chunk those out differently. But I would say you're like, what is your project that you're working on?
Well, so we're actually not very invested in the actual use case. We're just trying to get some hands-on experience with vector databases. And
cool.
It's kind of just like a weekly meetup. And so we were probably thinking along the lines of a life coaching kind of thing. Might be a fun
awesome
use case for this first project. Yeah.
You should sync back up with Avi after this too.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I should continue the conversation.
It really depends on the type of data. What I would say, just like you're saying, like if you're just doing it to get started, do the thing you talked about, and then look at what it's doing, and then see if you need to enhance it. So like what I've been doing too is I'll chunk it, I'll make my vector store, and then I'll bring it into like my chatbot. But I'll build a version of my chatbot that shows all the chunks getting loaded in. So you could, like if you're using Gradio to do the UI or something, you can have like a side panel that when you do a query and it queries the RAG database, then it'll show all the return chunks. And then that's a really good way for you to kind of debug, like, do these chunks make sense? Yes or no. And you can also like sometimes do some other filtering on your chunking, like do some sort of value score on it and get rid of them or something like that. Like that could be like, if they're too short, it's not going to really add a lot of context to your LM, you could just get rid of it. Or it could be a whole bunch of different ways to do this, but you can do some pre-filtering type of stuff on there.
Okay. So it is good to be pretty thoughtful about the segmentation. Like it almost seems like some of these roles that are becoming in demand are kind of like librarian type roles in nature.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, well, it's like now, like we were saying, now we're calling it context engineering more than like prompt engineering, I feel like, but there's a lot to go that can go into that. and it really, really like drastically affects how effective your conversational AI is.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And Thea had a question. Did anyone use the IBM AI's app to do the exercises? I did not use it. It looks kind of cool, but I haven't used it. I don't know if anyone else did. Did you use it, Thea? But also, yeah, Cody, for your thing, like I would just get started, like I was saying, and then look at the results. And for your use case, maybe it'll work really good. But I found like when I have, like thousands of chunks, and with things like code and different types of stuff like that, it's been useful to do something. I don't. Do you have a vector database you're looking to use?
No, it was towards the end of the meeting. We got on Hugging Face and we saw like 600 embedding models. So I'm not even really, yeah, it looks like we're just going to probably more or less choose one at random. But
Cool.
that is, I guess, another question is like what sort of considerations apply when you're wondering which embedding model to pick?
That's a great question. I don't even know if I have a super good answer besides I think there's some of like the complexity that it can handle. There's a new one on Hugging Face, or newish one. Also, OpenAI has like embedding models too. What's the new? There's the new Gemma embedding one that people say is really good. Maybe try to pull that up real quick.
Oh, Gemma, is that like Google's world model?
Yeah. So Google has this model. I'll share it in the chat and I'll put in the notes here. Gemma embedding. If you Google Gemma embedding, it should come up. It's like a 300 million parameter model, so it's pretty small. And people say it has like really, really good embedding results for the size of it, which is cool. So you should be able to run this on, maybe lighter weight hardware. It's been on my list to play with. I haven't yet, but I want to build a workflow that uses it for the embedding piece as well. I've also just often used the built-in embedding from like OpenAI, which if you're using that for the generative part is an option too. You're obviously just going to pay for some of the embedding tokens.
Nice. Okay. Thanks for the tip. I'll look into both of those.
And then you choose a vector database. There's a whole bunch that you can mess around with. If you want ones that already have like a hosted version that you can query from somewhere else, that's kind of like in enterprise sandbox. There's some really good ones like Weaviate, Pinecone. I think Qdrant actually has a really good free tier, like a free forever tier up to like 1 gigabyte, I think, of files, which is pretty good for like, like a toy type of project, or even like a small actual project. And then there's kind of in-memory ones that you can use locally that are really good, like Chroma is one of the most popular ones. I've used that quite a bit. And then there's one Feus. I forget what it translates to, but that's it was Facebook something, and it's their embedding model, or sorry, their vector store, which is really good.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I think it was the.
Oh, sorry, you cut off. Might be the cell signal changing from walking around. Any other questions from anyone? I know we have like only 9 minutes left. This hour went by faster than I was expecting on my end. Any other questions or comments from people in the chat, or anything you want to say if you want to come up here before we end the stream today? And Thea said they used the IBM manager for the platform. Charles said Chroma is easy to play with in Python. Yeah, Chroma is kind of my go-to if you're just getting started out. Feus is also easy. The other one I mentioned, Facebook. Should actually write those down as well. I'll make the other little column here. And if anyone has any other ones you want to shout out, let me know in the chat. Chroma, I think it's like that. It's the Facebook one. Like I mentioned, Qdrant has a really good free tier as well. Weaviate is really cool. They have a sandbox tier. I think there's a time limit on it, but they also have an embedded version now, which is actually really cool. So you can do the embedded one, use it locally, build out your project, and then when you're ready to kind of transition to like a professional grade vector store, then I don't think you have to change much code. And just instead of using your embedded one, you just switch over to their like enterprise version. So Weaviate actually has some really cool stuff, and the people and docs are awesome for them. There's also Pinecone. Someone said, "Do you read machine learning books as well?" We have, yes. I know just a lot of stuff has been dominated from the large language models and stuff like that. We do read them. Did we read any this year? We read more last year. This year, we did do the APIs for AI and data science. That was pretty good. And then we're gonna do the deep learning for biology. So that's not. I haven't read it. I assume that's not specific to like large language model stuff. Um, and then last year we actually did. I don't have the list here. They are on the GitHub. I could pull up. We actually read more traditional machine learning ones as well. And Niels has a great point. I think what we were getting at a little bit too is like they said, I like to think of embedding models, chunking techniques, and others such as settings such as hyperparameters to the AI system. The best embedding model should be assessed relative to some eval data set you've created, a synthetic one or human labeled data set. I think, like we were saying, even the chunking I mentioned, I view that as like a parameter to tune now as part of the AI process. So, like, you could start somewhere, start small, and then tune it. And you should have some sort of eval data set, or you don't have that yet. Like I mentioned, you can kind of look at outcomes and start assessing that way. And then the chapter here, like we mentioned, um, talks about creating a synthetic data set to help you get started there as well. And John said they're currently reading hands-on machine learning with scikit-learn and Keras and TensorFlow. I know I've looked at the one in the past, and there's a new one I think coming out. Instead of TensorFlow, it's going to be PyTorch, because I think TensorFlow just isn't being used quite as much anymore. And Thea asked, what's the best book for new learners? So everyone should put in the chat what they think it is. But I also want to clarify the topic, like machine learning, large language models, any specific ones that you have in mind, or a theme that you have in mind? And Niels, if you're still listening, actually choosing the initial embedding model, what do you kind of normally look for? If you have any insights on that, that was one of the questions. Niels is our awesome head of machine learning at Union. Which, like I was saying, we're hiring as well. Check out union.ai/careers. Out of the books that we read recently, Thea, again, I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for, but I actually thought the Building LMs for Production was a really good introduction to kind of the whole LM space. I guess it was written a year ago or more than a year ago. I don't think it's that outdated. You probably just changed some code. But that goes through like using LMs, the basic of context engineering, building RAG. I think they even do a little bit of agentic stuff in there. Oh, for Python specifically, there's one I went through. Well, I don't know actually. I'd have to look. If anyone has any Python recommendations, let Thea know. I think it was, is learning Python the really too thick one, or is that the smaller good one? There was one I read years ago that I know there's a newer version of that I did like, but I don't remember the name of it. Charles said they didn't see them covering the idea of simulation where you create a fake user to talk to your chat. Maybe I missed that. They do cover it actually in one of the chapters. It was one of the later ones. It might have been in this one, using generative AI to reduce complexity, or it was the augmenting data one. So they actually have a chapter where they talk about having a simulation piece where you build a fake user, and it's basically your test. And you have to give it some information, like if you have context, like they're talking about building a pharma robot with like a social security number. So they talk about having like your simulation being able to put those inputs in and then getting feedback on it. So they do talk a little bit about it. Any other questions or final thoughts? Someone asked, how about statistic books? Any recommendations? I don't know if I have any huge recommendation there. I know there's actually quite a few good-looking O'Reilly ones that I haven't read. There's obviously the classic that everyone will point you to. I've skimmed it. I haven't read all of it, which is the Elements of Statistics, or they have that kind of lighter weight one that is Elements of Statistics. But it really depends on where you're at and the way you like learning, I think. There's probably newer ones now. There was a good book I read a long time ago, actually, that I think was called Naked Statistics, and that was a good intro for, or a good like refresher for me on statistics. So quite a while ago, but I thought that was actually really good. And John recommends Python Crash Course, the second edition, as a good Python book. My guess is a lot of the Python books are going to be pretty good intros. There's also, I haven't read it, Lawrence Moroney came out with a new book that sounds similar to the one that was mentioned before, the machine learning with scikit-learn. Let me actually pull that up real quick. Give me 1 second here. Because that sounded good, and I actually was almost thinking about adding it to our reading list for sometime in 2026. Oops, I spelled his name wrong. And it would be a good kind of, I don't know if you want to, I mean, some of it would be an intro, a recap, but also this one goes, I think, pretty in depth into a lot of AI space. So it's an intro to Python, kind of. Let's see, did that go in? So there's this one. Oh, has one star review, but some of the reviews are awful in here. I haven't read the books. I don't know. But there's this AI and ML for coders in PyTorch. Sounds interesting. I think this is what I'm thinking about because it goes like it's going to be an intro to PyTorch. So maybe not where you're looking for if you haven't done that yet and you want more Python basics. But this does seem like, just from the chapter titles, that it's a good kind of intro to machine learning and some of the more modern stuff around AI, like large language models. With that, I'm going to wrap up today's stream. Thank you especially to Avi and Cody for coming up, because it's way more fun when it's not just me up here talking. Thank you everyone also in the chat and being super active here. That also makes it way more fun for everyone. Hopefully you found something interesting today. You want to share what that was with me. It's always fun to hear as well. I'll share again, if you want to join the Slack channel and say hello in there. There's also an introductions channel. So if you want to make a little bit more of a permanent introduction or something, tell us what you're working on. It's always fun. And there's also a lot of other industry people in there that work in like ML and AI at scale. Flight is our open source. That's what the part of the URL is. But there is a AI reading club channel in there where, again, if you want to discuss the book during the month as you're reading it, you're more than welcome to. People haven't been doing that lately. Like I was saying, I think in the summer, people kind of fell off of using the Slack channel for the book club discussions. Pretty active in a lot of the other areas. But just mentioning that, if you want to join that and kind of ask questions or about this book. So if you're catching up and reading this book later and you have questions, other people probably have read in there, and it'll be fun to discuss it in there. With that, I'm going to wrap up the stream. So again, thank you everyone for coming. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something new. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was actually really fun and made me think about some things that I'm currently working on a little bit differently. So I thought it was a really good read. And I'm excited for the next one, which again is LLM, where it is, LLM Ops, Managing Large Language Models for Production. I haven't read this. Sounds cool. It's a new one that just came out, so it should be pretty up to date probably on a lot of the technology. And I assuming it's going to cover a lot of great stuff about like monitoring and production and scaling and stuff like that. Again, I haven't read it yet, so I'm just assuming here, but it should be good. And then November is deep learning for biology, and then December is building applications with AI agents. And if you have ideas for what you want to read in 2026, let me know. I know one that's coming out maybe in December is one by Chris Fregley. We read his book last year, which was Generative AI in AWS. He has a new one coming out on production AI, but it goes into like a lot of like CUDA. I think there's, or not a lot, but like some like CUDA programming and stuff like that. So I'm excited for that one. Like very low level production stuff. I think that'll be a little bit different and really exciting. If people want more machine learning focused books, let me know too. Like we're not always just reading about LMs. I do like to diversify it a little bit, even though this year has definitely been very LM heavy. If you have other recommendations, let me know. Like the other one that just came out I shared, maybe that'll go in the list for next year as well. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out.